For over a decade, one superhero franchise has dominated the airwaves and drawn an audience far larger than any other. Fans have affectionately come to name this franchise the Arrowverse. Greetings fanboys and fangirls, I'm Erod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster, and welcome to a look back at the Arrowverse. We begin where every good comic book story should begin. Secret Origins. Believe it or not, the inception of the Arrowverse actually started with Smallville, one of the most successful comic book-based shows in the history of television, running for a full 10 seasons on the WB. And the network was so pleased with the show's enormous success that talks about a possible spin-off started almost from the beginning. Many spin-offs were proposed throughout the show's very long run, but only 2 of them are relevant to today's story. The first was basically a series with the exact same premise as Smallville, but following a young Bruce Wayne on his journey to become Batman. This one was turned down because Warner Brothers had a Batman Year One movie in development for years, and it was about to come to fruition as the movie that we now know as Batman Begins. The initial Batman Year One pitch would also come to fruition 13 years later, remodeled and repackaged as Gotham. However, the most pivotal pitch would come during Smallville's 6th season, when it was proposed to create a series following Justin Hartley as Green Arrow, assembling and leading the Justice League. According to Justin Hartley, he felt a great deal of trepidation towards this idea as he was concerned that it might tarnish what they created on Smallville. But ultimately, this idea never got past the talking stage. This all changed 4 years later, as Smallville and the WB network were coming to an end. The cable network was about to be merged with UPN to become the CW, and the new network desperately needed new original content. This is when it was proposed to combine the 2 most promising Smallville spin-off ideas, and basically create Batman Year One, but following Green Arrow instead. Andrew Kreisberg, Greg Berlanti, and Mark Guggenheim took on the producer duties for the series, and David Nutter, who directed the pilot for Smallville, also directed the pilot for this new show. Immediately, the creative team decided that their show would carve its own path and take place in a continuity separate from Smallville. So, Justin Hartley was replaced by Stephen Amell. The network was so pleased with the pilot that not only did they pick up the show, but they created an aggressive marketing campaign in preparation for the show's premiere, which included a trailer that heavily featured Amell working out and training to become the Green Arrow. And then the unprecedented happened. The clip of Amell working out went viral, amassing over 1 million views in 1 week. Arrow premiered on October 10th, 2012. The pilot episode would go on to be the highest rated premiere for the network at the time. Cool. Now, for those of you who don't know, created by Mort Weisinger and George Papp, Oliver Queen was a spoiled rich a-hole who ended up marooned on a deserted island for 5 years. During this time, he learned archery and other amazing survival skills to get by. When he's inevitably rescued, Oliver returns to Star City, a changed man, wanting to make up for his past sins and the many times that he failed his city. So he puts his archery skills to good use by fighting crime as the masked vigilante known as the Green Arrow. However, the most fascinating part of this story is that in spite of the show's amazing success right out of the gate, the best was yet to come. The Hood. As part of the creative team's mission statement to make the show different from Smallville, the first season of Arrow is devoid of any superpowered characters or supernatural elements. Hell, Oliver Queen doesn't even refer to himself as the Green Arrow. For the entirety of the first season, he is referred to simply as the Hood. This drew the ire of a lot of fans who felt that the show was not faithful to the source material. To those folks I say that you obviously never read Longbow Hunters, which features a more realistic, grounded version of Green Arrow that bears a lot of striking similarities to the first few seasons of the show. The other famous complaint is that this show borrowed a lot from Batman's mythology. Well, the fact of the matter is that Green Arrow was literally created to rip off Batman in order to meet the enormous demand for comics featuring characters characters with similar attributes during Batman's meteoric rise in popularity in the early 40s. So if anything, the creators were actually being more faithful to the source material than previous adaptations. In spite of the criticism, Season 1 of Arrow was a massive hit. The only problem now was replicating or possibly surpassing that level of success with Season 2, a challenge the creative team was happy to undertake. However, while plotting Season 2, Greg Berlanti walked into the writer's room and said the words that would change this one-hit show into one of the biggest franchises in television history. During Season 2, Barry Allen will appear, get hit by lightning, fall into a coma, and wake up in his own show.
Man, that's not freaking you out. Let's go.
The Streak. Now, for those of you who don't know, created by Robert Kanigher and Carmine Infantino, Barry Allen was a forensic scientist who was hit by lightning one night while working in his lab. That, and a combination of chemicals that spilled on him, gave him access to the Speed Force, a subatomic energy field that grants Barry superhuman speed, which he uses to protect Central City by taking up the mantle of the Flash, the fastest man alive. While Season 1 of Arrow avoided all the more fantastic elements from the comics, Season 2 fully embraced the colorful fantasy of the DCU. Something that could have been represented better than by introducing the very character that jump-started the Silver Age of comics, Barry Allen, the Flash. Which makes it all the more appropriate that Barry is the character who gives Oliver Queen his mask. However, when the news broke that Grant Gustin had been casted as Barry Allen, the news was met with a great deal of trepidation from the fanbase that was very similar to when it was announced that Heath Ledger was playing the Joker. Because at the time, Gustin was only known for being on Glee, and he looks absolutely nothing like Barry Allen. And I'm ashamed to admit that I was one of these skeptical people. However, like many people, Grant Gustin won me over the moment that he walked on screen, possessing a charm and charisma that were the perfect foil for Amel's presence and intensity.
So how do we catch Bivolo here?
Oh no, we don't here. We're here to train.
What? Like Rocky?
And then came what I consider to be the best mid-season cliffhanger in television history. The Flash premiered on October 7, 2014, completely shattering Arrow's premiere ratings. But don't count out The Emerald Archer, as its ratings remained steady, and the two shows proved to be a winning combination, dominating the top spots during the weekly ratings, and satisfying specific portions of the fanbase. While Arrow served as a darker, grittier crime drama, Flash was a brighter, more fantastic sci-fi fantasy that openly made you cheer for the main hero, and by the end of the season, you too were encouraging him to run, Barry, run.
That's impossible.
Also, it's important to note that in just 2 seasons, Flash was already doing storylines about the multiverse, long before Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, Evelyn Kwan, and that other Flash. You know, the one we don't talk about.
Seems safe and
Breathable.
But the question on everyone's lips even before The Flash premiered was, when were these two shows going to cross over? Thankfully, we wouldn't have to wait very long for the creators to grant our request. The Brave and the Bold. On December 2nd, 2014, the world would bear witness to the first ever Arrowverse crossover, the 2-night event that we would come to know as Flash vs. Arrow. Our heroes' first team-up didn't come without the usual friction and obligatory superhero fight scene, but it was spectacular nonetheless.
Ready, set.
What was apparent is that we were on the brink of a new era of heroes. The DCW. At a time when Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead were dominating primetime, Flash and Arrow were most definitely holding their own as legitimate contenders. Not to mention the amazing viewership drawn by the crossover at a time when audiences were starting to transition from cable to streaming. Suffice it to say, doing another crossover wasn't just a cool idea, It was a necessity. So on December 1st, 2015, the Emerald Archer and the Scarlet Speedster teamed up again to take on the immortal Vandal Savage. While the second crossover was bigger and more elaborate than the last, it was a bit convoluted and failed to capture the magic of the original. In spite of this, the viewership was amazing, but it was apparent that something was missing. So on the next look back at the Arrowverse, we will learn that that missing element was simply a feminine touch.
This is my friend Kara Danvers, or as she's known on her Earth, Supergirl.
What makes her so super?